Hello, everyone. This is Abhishek. I'm part of Evo Automation. I'm heading Evo Education Community Part Enablement Function at Evo. And this podcast is a part of an initiative that we are driving. We call it as a QA Ambassador program, and the podcast is one of the initiative under QA Ambassador program. And today we're gonna talk about a very interesting topic: decoding the AI advantage in quality assurance space. And I'm very excited to welcome an award-winning tester, QA professional with nearly 2 decades of experience across defense, utility, finance, and insurance. And what makes it more interesting is he is a ex-army professional, also served as a mechanical engineer in aircraft industries, and he is a recognized European software testing awards tester. He's also known for bringing sense, calm, insights, and depth to the world of quality assurance. And what makes him truly stand out is how he blends Stoic philosophy with the software testing, which helps team stay calm, rational, and focus even under pressure. And many in the community know him as a Stoic tester, right? So you can simply Google Stoic tester and you'll find all about him, right? He currently serves as a consultant, principal consultant in Inspire Testing company, where he contributes in testing across different ecosystems. He's a board member of Global Skill Development Council, focusing on AI testing program, where he is responsible for sharing insights into emerging technologies, blockchain, digital transformation, and also helps align training programs with real-world skills. He is also accreditation manager at UK and Ireland Testing Board, helping professional and certifying software testers and representing a UK internally as part of ISTQB network. With his mix of technical mastery, philosophical depth, and dedication to growth, he truly represents what it makes to be a thoughtful and purposeful driven tester. Right? It's an absolute honor for us to welcome him at this podcast. So, welcome, Stephen. We're very excited to have you on board.
I am very good as well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So, before we get into the real topic, right? So, I have touched upon strike testing, right? So I would like to understand more on what strike testing is, and based on my limited research on this, right? So I understand it's coming from a philosophy, like Stoicism is a philosophy which basically tells you to stay relevant, calm, and rational in whatever circumstance and situation is.
Yeah.
So I would like to understand uh, how you are basically got into this, and I know you are practicing this. You're basically asking everyone to practice and explore the story testing approach. Yeah, so want to understand that before we get to real topics.
Yeah, sure. So as you alluded to, it's
Yeah,
and it's taking the teachings and learnings from ancient Stoic philosophy. So from the founding fathers Zeno, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and a few others who were famous Stoic philosophers. And the core tendency of Stoicism is that you should kind of only focus on the things that you can actually control. And in reality, that list is actually very small. The only thing you can really control is how you react to things that happen, as opposed to the things themselves you can influence and adjust to other things. But ultimately, it's your response to things that is the only thing you can control. And what I've seen in my military career, and it translated into the testing career as well, is that people get burnt out and very challenged with how projects go, with how deliveries go, because of external factors that they think they have some sort of level of control over, when in reality they don't. You're hugely dependent on other things happening. And Stoicism has helped me to kind of keep calm in those very challenging situations. And that's why I'm advocating it for others.
yeah. No, that's very exciting, right? And I guess we would be really interesting to know more about this stoic testing and how you practice it, probably in form of a workshop, which you can plan later. But let's get into the topic for the day,
Yeah.
right? So before we delve deeper, right? So I would just like to understand, right? AI's role in current testing scale, right? So people are some says that AI will take a lot of jobs. Some says that if you are not using AI as a companion, then the risk of losing job would be there. Some would say that now with the advent or with the emerging AI technologies or AI tech, right? The need of people who has the core knowledge or foundational knowledge would be required more, because we would need someone to basically review what AI is actually generating.
Yeah.
So could you please touch briefly upon those?
Yeah, sure. So I've seen a mix of how AI has been adopted and used from testers. So I've seen the need for testing AI, or actually testing the solutions themselves and making sure they produce the outputs that you want, which we can talk about. I've also seen how testers have adapted to using AI to help them do their work. So if you think about in the past having to manually create hundreds of test cases against a requirements document, you can trick a requirement document into LLM, give it some appropriate prompts and some context. It's going to generate a whole suite of test cases for you. Now, whether those test cases are any good, that's a different matter, but it's certainly going to help you do a lot of the heavy lifting. It's also going to help you do a lot of like kind of the data analysis, which is kind of traditionally become quite manually driven as well. And also, I think it's a useful tool to get up speed on a framework or an architecture that you're not particularly familiar with. So if you're coming into a different background, into a different sector of the industry, into a different, so that you get moving from a financial client to like a utilities client, what are the specific considerations? And AI can actually do quite a good job of kind of helping you understand that industry in a little bit more detail, understand how it might impact your testing. So the example I use there, the need for uh, regulatory-based requirements in the utility sector, set in the UK, that's something you really have to get your head around and really does impact the testing that you're doing. So I think it's a mix of adoption to help you do it and to help you kind of do the things you've been doing just a little bit quicker. I think there's definitely an element of you need to learn how to test them, which we'll hopefully get onto at some point. Um, and to answer your question, is it going to replace people? I think it's much like any technology. It's not going to replace things. It's certainly going to change the way that things are, how things are done, and how things are delivered. But if you're not kind of with it, you're probably kind of against it, and it's pretty you're fighting against the wave. So I would always advocate testers in the normal community to kind of stay as relevant as you can be. You don't have to become an SME, but know enough to be dangerous, and that if AI comes across or you're having to interact with it, you know how to deal with it, you know how to test it, you know how to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree, right? So you have to be using that as a companion, right? So in order to have like basically let go those mundane tasks, right, which eventually AI can solve, and focus on which is more relevant. Yeah, thanks. That makes sense. Now I have I just need to understand, right? With AI coming to picture, right? There are a lot of different technologies that people are using. Some are using NLP based, some are using computer based, generative, let's say AI, uh, natural languages. Some are using MCPs and agentic automation. So how do you see these different AI technology work together, or say in silos whatsoever, in a testing context?
Yeah. So if you take an example between one of my colleagues, Rian, he's more from a developer based background.
Yeah.
And the way that he uses AI for kind of vibe coding and agentic things to help him write the code that he wants to produce and understand these test cases is very different to how I tackle it, coming from a non-development based background. I use AI for my testing to test my own hypotheses on an assumption I'm having around the system and how it will work. And if my test cases are an appropriate level of coverage, I'm using it to bounce ideas off and kind of argue against myself. So I think depending on your background and your experiences of what role you're doing within QA, that's kind of helping you go towards that path and maybe just making you even better at it. I'm hoping what it does help though is people that aren't necessarily coders by profession or coders by experience, that it's helping you to understand code and develop and write your own code. And conversely, people that are predominantly from an automation background, to help them with their critical thinking and their manual testing skills that they kind of might have started to kind of drift off. So I think it's really good to complement your skill set and complement your strengths. It's also, if used correctly, can also help you identify some of those weaknesses you might have in your arsenal.
Yeah, yeah. No, I guess that makes sense. And what I'm also hearing, right? So with this thing called vibe coding and vibe testing coming into play, like people have started to practice it. But what I've also seen, right? This is not solving entire problem, right? So probably when it comes to complexity, probably these if you leverage fully on AI, you're gonna fail at certain point of time. So what's your opinion on this, right? Is like adopting this fully or adopting partially just to get our head start, or we should not be like just relying with these fancier technology terms and all.
I think it starts with you need to educate yourself on how AIs function and how they work under the hood, right? And understand kind of why it gets the answers and the responses that it does. That's a starting point, right? So a base foundation of understanding how AI works. Next thing is like a more high level of understanding what it is. In my opinion, AI, I like to call it a fast idiot. So what I mean by that is it'll get to an answer much quicker than I will. It won't necessarily be the right answer, but it'll get to that answer much faster than me. So that allows us really rapid feedback, so I can really start to rattle through ideas and rattle through test cases. I start to see the patterns and answers that I want to see much faster than me kind of doing it by myself. So I think it's a good accelerator. That's the next thing you need to remember. But it isn't great as in terms of its overall intelligence. It doesn't understand it. You have to understand that when it comes to its quality output. And then the last thing is if you don't give your AI's context, if you don't give it the understanding of what it is you're trying to ask for of it, you will really get poor quality results from it. So it doesn't understand. So if I just ask it to produce me a set of test suites for an API-based architecture, here's the solution diagram, produce me a lot of test cases. It'll have a good shot at it and it'll produce lots of material. But if it doesn't know that the development team is a party of six, you've got poor relationships with the project manager, the budget is actually quite constrained, you've got a 3 month delivery plan to work to, it's going to go live on 4 different sites. It has to be cross-browser compatible. Like it doesn't know all this additional context, which you, as someone embedded in the project or the program and the team, knows. So it's going to make a huge amount of assumptions and probably go the wrong path. That's where it's only as good as what you give it.
Yeah. So in that scenario, probably it will hallucinate, right? And we end up getting response that doesn't make sense.
Hallucination assumption.
Yeah. So basically, in order to use AI, you have to be smart, right? You have to give full context, right? And you also briefly touched upon the don'ts or probably limitations of AI. So I'd like to understand, right? So what are those? If you explain or elaborate more on limitations of AI in testing, and where does it still fall short, and where do human remain irreplaceable?
Yeah. Okay. So where does it fall short? So if I use some practical experience from a client I've been working with or worked with, is one of the things it falls down on is human perception of what it can do. So a human being thinks of AI from a science fiction based perspective of I can just give it very little information, very few commands, and it'll produce and do all these amazing tasks for me and make my life much easier and kind of irrelevant. It isn't. It's a very fast idiot, like I've said. It needs constant guidance and oversight to produce the outcomes that you want. It is one of the main ones in terms of its limitations. The second one is it will make things up, right? If we're talking like more from an LLM perspective, there's an acceptable amount of hallucination that an LLM will produce. It will just do that. So there's something to kind of constantly aware of. It's also hugely reliant on your own domain knowledge of the thing that you are interacting about it. So if you're a brand new tester, you've been testing for 3 to 6 months, you've done your ISTQB foundation, and you go, great, I've got AI now, it can do all my test cases and it can do all my design for me, great, it's going to save me loads of time. That's great, but don't outsource AI for your thinking. What the AI can't do and where the human being is integral to this process is critical thinking, right? Challenging assumption, using experience to understand that these kinds of things tend to go wrong. These are things we're going to struggle with. This ambiguity is going to cause a risk. The AI doesn't know that from any experience it has itself. It's going off effectively what it's learnt from the training model that you've given it. A human being's ability to critically understand this will go wrong in one way or another, the AI doesn't have that ability. That's the biggest thing that as a tester, you need to develop and make sure it's the core root of your skill set is critical thinking and understanding a problem statement and identifying what needs to be done. And it's all about context, right? Understanding what context is of the ask and understand what is the best approach.
Yeah, yeah. So if you have to say, so in order to use this AI systems, right, for your testing needs, or even not for just testing needs, or for any other purposes, right? What is the bare minimum skill or bare minimum thing that one should know in order to have AI give you proper responses so that it doesn't hallucinate a lot, right? So what is that one thing, right, that people should practice in order to have a proper response in place?
I guess like there's, I'd also advocate where possible that if there's appropriate training material or courses available, there's tons of stuff available online and even for IPOI and other bodies that will help you understand the AI and how to test it and how to use it. All those things have value, I think. But I think the biggest thing from my own personal perspective is just using it constantly and start to see the patterns of its behavior and start to see what it's very good at and what it's very bad at. The kind of exposure therapy of just constantly using it, constantly challenging it. My friend Jan used to say he would battle with the AI.
Mm-hmm.
So it would kind of go off on a tangent. It would kind of force it to try and get back on track. And as the models have improved, like certainly the last like ChatGPT models that have come out, it's much more about of having a conversation with the AI as opposed to battling it to get the answer that you want. But you can only do that by actually engaging in those kinds of conversations and those kinds of context with that tool set that you're going to use. There's only so much you can learn in theory. It's very much about applying practical application to use the tools in reality for real tasks with real information.
Yeah, no, that's true. Now you see a lot of legacy or enterprise, not legacy, but enterprise customers, right? Enterprise companies, right? Just like captives and big fours, right, and all, right? They they still have functional users, a functional consultant, right? Who are not technical, and where and that basically gave a idea or say to vendors like us, right, to come up with a solution which is no code, script free, anyone can use it, right?
Yeah.
So how you see these platforms, right, actually democratizing the entire test automation space, and what does this mean for all the future uh, of QA, and what different personas could be involved, right? Currently, if you look things outside AI, it's probably that you would need a person who would familiar with testing knowledge and see things how it works. But I guess with these coming into picture, right? How you see these evolve? Do you see that new personas can contribute to testing landscape with things being like redesigned or refactored for all the personas, whether you are technical, non-technical uh, uh, people, right, in your org?
Yeah. Okay. So let me try to break that question into some chunks. So in terms of AI tools to help you automate, sort of like low code solutions where you can just give it the requirements or some test cases that you've manually written and ask it to go and write you some automation code, right, for that test case and whatever framework you want to use. Yeah, those tools definitely exist, and even Inspired Testing, our own test tool Velo, which is our own AI test companion, that does that. We can give it a test case manually and convert it to Python or whatever it is interested in. Those things have an enormous value, right? It's a huge time save, but it still requires a human being to review the content that is produced to match the framework and the test suite that you're going to be implementing in. So a huge accelerator. It's also a huge element of helping people that are for more, I don't know, like the whole manual versus automation debate, but also people that are more manually driven that don't have a coding experience, like a coding background like myself, to kind of get involved in automation. And it's a bit of a less daunting task. I like to ask AIs to produce code for me for certain tasks and tools, and then I'll try and decipher its rationale underneath in Python or whatever it's using underneath. That's really good to kind of demystify the coding process and why it comes to conclusions as it has. So I think it's really useful for that.
Yeah.
Where does it fit in with clients and helping them with their work and helping them kind of get the answers that they want? Um, Automation is just is another tool in your armory. Automation is a mechanism for accelerating something which is predominantly manual and time consuming. It's not a panacea. No longer is AI either, right? But your toolbox, how you tackle the quality problem needs to be broad, right? AI is part of that solution now. Automation set of that solution now. Functional tool sets, your critical thinking. There's a whole tool set that should all complement and work with each other to get the quality answers that the client needs. Heavy reliance on one thing over another is going to leave an order of dependence, and it's going to create gaps. So I would definitely advocate using them and advocate advocating them for clients as well, and using them as accelerators and to help skill gaps for people that are predominantly manually based.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I guess just if we extend further into automation, right? So not even automation, testing. Testing also involves, say, or have a phase where we need to also do a RC of our testing failures, right? Root cause analysis, right? And also analyze, right? The trends of defects. If the defects are same defects are like coming in with every release or whatsoever, right? So how do you see AI helping testers, right, get those insights quickly, and how do you see this evolve in future?
Yeah. Okay, so if we look at like coverage as an example, and I'll defer back to the Velo, which is the AI tool that you use in Inspired. One of the things that is used for is to do requirements analysis and coverage. So we can feed it a requirement document in our user story or whatever form function you have. It will then do a gap analysis of how good that requirement is from a testability perspective, and then generate your test cases. Conversely, you can do it the other way around. You could feed it, you set up test cases, and then requirement and go, well, how good are these two mapped together? And it can look at coverage gap. Like I'm missing edge cases or some negative tests here, or I'm not considering performance, right? Those tools, Avelo and other tools definitely can do that, and they're super useful.
Yeah.
If you look at root cause analysis for defects, same principle, but slightly different. What I like to do for defects personally is I use metadata and other tags on either my Jira tickets or my ADO boards to start to identify what I think are trends in what kind of defects that we're seeing, and asking my team to explore if the defect happens in this regard, it's probably going to be somewhere else. So look for me. And then as part of that, I do a kind of review report where I'll list all of my defects. I'll feed that back into an AI tool with custom projects and prompt. And just say, right, I believe that my problem areas are X, Y, and Z. I think identify issues with X, Y, and Z. And what I'm asking the AI to do is argue against me. But to agree, I'm saying, is there a flaw in my thinking? Is there a gap in my logic? Is there some information that I've missed based upon what I provided? How close am I to this being the thing that's wrong or the trend that we're seeing? Very, very good for that. And then even just the simple thing of helping you generate reports and dashboards to go back to your stakeholders, both internal and external, great for that. Here's all the test cases, here's all the status of them all, produce me a test report, and it'll click out a massive template. You can go and then complete it real quickly. Not object great, but it does speed that process up as well.
Yeah, it's a quite interesting point, right? So, like asking AI to challenge us, right? Challenge our thoughts, right? Why we are doing this way? Why it's failing that way? I guess that's a very interesting point. Like, I would love people exploring this, and we get to probably put this in our product
Yeah.
management way ahead also, right?
Yeah, not unique idea, but it's something from Stoicism, which is
So,
big on the Stoa on the port, which is kind of conversing with people about your ideas and having them constructively challenge your ideas. Uh, Part of that, if my idea doesn't stand up to rigor an assessment from somebody else, the idea probably doesn't have merit. So the AI can act as someone to bounce that idea off. In the age of working from home, working online, and less in person, right? And an AI tool is super useful to be that person to bounce ideas off, having conversations with, getting it to review the things that you're making and helping you with that. It doesn't replace a human being in that regard, but it's super useful for those people that do predominantly work from home and remotely as well.
now, I was reading one of the reports from S&P Global, right? So that says that 40% of the companies, right, will abandon AI projects in 2025 amid growing AI fatigue, right? So I just as leader, right, and though the one who are actually practicing AI, right, day in day out. So like to understand how do you separate hype from reality, and what guidance you would share with the team drowning in with this AI buzz.
Yeah.
Stu?
Okay, so let's tackle it from the perspective of a client that I'm working with, and they've either bought an AI tool or they're developing an AI tool to complete a task for them. You've really got to help them understand it's a 90% of the answer type of deal. It's
Mm,
not going to give you 100% of what you want in the way that you want it. It's going to be 80-90% of the way there. And if that's good enough in terms of the time saved and the quality it produces, great. Advocate the tool. It isn't going to replace the human being end to end. It's not at that point yet. It may get there eventually, but I haven't seen evidence of that to the contrary. As an example, one of the tools we're working with at the moment produces letters to go to clients and to kind of give them an overview of their service. I asked a huge group of users, is your expectation that this letter will be customized to the way that you speak.
Mm.
Yeah, I want it to sound like I've written it. I was like, well, it won't be doing that, right? The amount of training data you would have to give an AI for each individual user to get it to sound like you, and even then it won't be 100%, is kind of immense, and it kind of isn't, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. But it can definitely go, I want this to be sound like our way of speaking and our tone, or this to be less formal and more formal. It can certainly do those kinds of things. So I think you start with helping people understand what it can and can't do, and there's some examples I've cited of how you could do that. In terms of AI fatigue, I think it's the same thing that we saw with early automation adoption, as it's a panacea. It is a sticking plaster for all of my problems. I've got a problem with it infrastructure. I'm going to stick a big automation packer on it. It's going to fix it. I'm going to introduce this new AI agent to help me with the code base. It'll fix it. It won't do that. It might do that, but it's a context appropriate solution. Is this problem going to be made better or worse by the implementation of an AI tool set? If the answer is yes, then go for it. If it isn't, and you're doing it because that's what everyone else is doing, you're probably going down the wrong path. And that's what's certainly leading to burnout, is tools, clients and people wanting to be seen as AI enabled, or we understand the AI and know it works. Great, but are you just adopting it for the sake of that, or are you adopting it because you think it's going to add quality to your the quality of the service that you offer to people?
Yeah. And I also feel, right, and your response made me think, right? So you are just going or following the trend, right? So people were switching from waterfall to agile, right, which is a few decade long practice. But the reality is not all the enterprise, small companies fine, but not all enterprise
Yeah,
companies,
certainly that
right?
struggles to implement agile.
Exactly. So I just want to understand, right? So we are we are struggling to implement agile. Now we are talking about new innovation and the testing AI. So how you see that implemented, right? So basically operationalized. People talk about AI, they don't understand it thoroughly. They'll probably do a POC and all, then they'll hit a bottleneck, right? They'll say because those testing processes, those tooling they use is so deeply integrated in their systems, it's very hard for them because it will impact their core businesses, right? Which eventually hit their say P&Ls. So what you see happening, right, with AI in place, does it really be a say mandate going forward for all enterprise customers? Will they be able to switch it considering how big applications or how deeply the old testing processes are actually included in their current operations?
Yeah. So yeah, I don't understand like a repeating the answer, but I will say it again. And it's a shout out to James Back and the likes. Is context is king. If the context of your problem as you as an enterprise, it will meet the criteria for AI to help you with that, then use it. If it doesn't, and you're just doing it because you for some other reason, then don't use it.
Hmm.
Let's try and give you a, a, a more realistic answer. I guess it's down to the people. What's AI exposed to me is something that I kind of already believed, which is businesses and enterprise and clients are speed driven and they're money driven, right? Quite rightly, right? It's about making money. It's about doing it as fast as efficiently as possible. Now, what they're often not about is how good that thing is, right? It's fast, it makes me lots of money. I don't really care if the feedback from the user community isn't great. We're making loads of money. It's really fast. It's efficient. What AI is really, really fast, and in time,
Mhm.
it's going to be extremely efficient, save you lots of money. But the quality is the thing that really matters, and that's where the fatigue comes from. Yeah, I've got this new AI tool that saves me 2 hours a week, but it keeps getting it wrong all the time. I'm going to spend half an hour of those 2 hours rewriting it and changing the content or amending what is produced, or rewriting that code base because it made some assumptions. That's the fatigue comes in because you're not assessing it from a quality perspective. You're assessing it from a speed cash delivered perspective, right? And that's where the burnouts come in because it will be faster, it will be quicker, but will it be any good? So,
Yeah.
and it flips testing not on its head, but testing to what it should have been in the first place, which is testers shouldn't just be in there ticking boxes, as in I click button, application does thing. Anyone can kind of do that. What happens when I click button, the AI does a thing and it produces a 70-page document with graphs and charts and stuff in it and tables, and I have to individualistically assess the quality of the content that it's produced. I can't just go test cases, kind of just click a button thing does. I've got to go quality metrics to assess that output. So I think if enterprises and clients started to adopt better utilization of quality metrics, as well as the speed and the cache, that burnout would be much more managed because you would see the quality of the thing being measured as opposed to just how fast it is at doing it.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've probably seen this transformation in few of the clients, right, which you have worked for them, right? So I would just want to understand that how what improvements you have seen, right, where the clients have implemented such practices, right, using leveraging AI or advanced AI, agentic AI or MCP server.
Yeah, sure. But then we've got a pretty good use case from our toolset Mello of we provided, I think we did a case study. I'm going to get the exact numbers incorrect, but it's on our website. Then we did a case study where we got two or three of our very experienced automation engineers to look at requirements, set solution documentation, other things, and produce as many test cases as they could in a day. I think they got to 40 to 60. Then we had the same group of people or equivalent skill set to use Velo as a test accelerator to see how many test cases they produced. And it was in the hundreds, right? So obviously quantity isn't always a good factor of success. But if we did a comparison of the manually produced versus the AI produced, and there's like 90% overlap, right? So the AI got 90% of the answers that the manual team are looking at, right? That's an enormous amount of coverage in a very short period of time. But less than 10% the human being had to it, an enormous benefit. If I look at the client I'm currently supporting, they're producing what is effectively a manual process to produce a whole suite of documents. This manual process takes hours and hours to do, and it's quite labor intensive. This tool set can produce documents in minutes, right? The quality we're still assessing, we're still kind of tweaking it to get the answers that the client wants. But to go from hours of time to produce a manual document to minutes or less than an hour, there's a huge time saving when you multiply and scale it out to 50, 100, 500, 1,000 users.
Yeah.
That's a time cost saving is immense. So I think that those use cases do exist when the AI is applied appropriately to the problem. When it's very broad, it hasn't kind of given a very distinct thing to point at. That's when this AI fatigue kicks in a little bit more. If you give it a very specific use case and a very specific problem statement, and you tailor it, you'll get very good quality output.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah, that's a same thing that I would repeat, right? As you said, the Dem James back also quote, right? Context is the king. So to give the right context to AI, then you'll have a better response. Coming to quality of result that AI produces, right? So there was a LinkedIn post, right, that sparked a lot of debate, right, where people were basically debating. There's a founder who actually posted this over LinkedIn, right? So the question was like, the thing is like how do you see balance between AI driven speed and maintaining quality in testing, right? Nowadays developer are creating or producing codes, right, like crazy. Probably they are taking help of tools like Cursor, Copilot, right, or whatever, right? They're producing code, delivering code, enormous, enormous speed. But to keep up with the same pace, it's very challenging, right, for uh, people who are leveraging AI for testing, right?
Yeah.
So how do you see this balance between AI-driven testing and maintaining the quality in testing?
Yeah, yeah. And I'll try and thread some stoicism into this one. So if you just think about this logically, right? If you remove AI from the equation, we'll get back to it, and you just think about this from a logical perspective of the life cycle of a product. You can't cut time coming up with what you want to build. So requirements is going to take time. You can't really reduce that time. You've eventually got to come up with the requirements. That time's very rarely going to get cut. Right? You can't really reduce the amount of time you spend in designing the answer to that requirement set. Right? Point
Mm-hmm.
two. You're
Mm-hmm.
not really going to reduce that time.
Mm-hmm.
You aren't going to reduce the time to build the thing, right? That's arguably the most important part of this cycle is actually building the thing. Otherwise, you won't have anything to look at.
Yeah.
You won't have anything to test, right? So you can't reduce the build. So what does get reduced in every cycle that we've ever been on? The testing gets pushed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the requirements take a little bit longer, the solution design is a little bit more difficult to do, and the code base is a bit more complicated. So testing gets compressed. So testers have to adopt different testing methodologies to work with a limited amount, which is where the stoicism comes in, right? Applying a risk-based approach to testing, looking at where my coverage is the most important, not how complete that coverage is. Now, if you exacerbate that problem with AI, as you've mentioned, well, I can do the requirements in minutes now. My solution architect can produce the solution within the same day. My developers can start to write thousands of lines of code a week, 10 times, 100 times faster than they are currently. That creates an enormous amount of backlog on the tester. How do I get through all of that in time? How do I get across that, right?
Mm.
It's the age-old philosophy of shifting the tester across the life cycle. So moving us left of arc and right of arc, right? So having the tester involved in the creation of the requirements and the assessment of those requirements, what AI actually using, what prompts have you been giving it, what metrics of quality have you used to assess how good that requirement is. When you've done your solution design, have you used AI to attack the problem from a different angle? Have you considered what the problems with the solution design are? What's the problem with a specific type of architecture? What often comes up with problems? This API architecture often leads to these kinds of defects. And then in terms of your code base, leveraging your developers and working with your developers, well, great. You've now got 1,000 times more code base than you had previously doing it manually. What's your unit test coverage against that? It's the same as it was before. Well, guess what? That isn't going to be good enough, right? So using the AI to increase your unit test coverage, enormous. Do the mutation testing where you ask the AI to mutate the code base to see if your automated test will pass. Enormous thing for your repertoire. But and then if you're going to shift right with testers and thinking about it as a whole life cycle and how to tackle this problem, is testers a voice, a seat at the table, right? They need to be represented at a senior level and have somebody who argues for quality and for appropriate testing to be conducted at that table. Often those testers' voices get drowned out, and this is where my stoicism comes back in, and we have burn out from that point. But that's super important. You can advocate the best practices, you can come up with structures, ways of working. If testers don't have a seat at the table and they are appropriately funded and resourced, they're going to fight a losing battle, and eventually they're going to be drowned by a wave of AI produced code that no one's looked at.
Yeah. So do you see this shift happening? And you're talking about, say, having tester voicing their suggestions, right, or everything, basically taking a seat that you're actually coding. Do you see that being operationalized or being practiced in organization where actually you're consulting, or if not, do you see them like buying this approach?
Yeah, a bit of a mix. I would say sporadic. So no, certainly from Inspired Testing, our resources are always kind of trying to get involved in every aspect of it as well, not just the kind of waiting for the developers to be done. So I think it's certainly a company and client based difference, right? Some clients are very open to it, others are very against it because they feel you encroaching in other areas that aren't outside of your remit. I think broadly as a testing community, we're quite good at it in pockets, but also we're very fatigued with having to kind of constantly fight the same battle of testing is important, everybody. And everyone goes, yeah, sure, but we need to get this thing out by Wednesday. So how important is testing, right? Well, I've got 150 tests to do by Wednesday. Well, it's going out on Wednesday, so good luck with that, right? Those conversations still happen, and I guess they always will happen. But I think accepting that is reality, and that reality might be exacerbated by AI accelerating that process. This going to go back to focus on what you can control, right? Having those conversations with people that are willing to hear you, trying to expand your influence to people that can make those decisions at an appropriate level to make people care about the quality of the thing that they're making, not just how fast they make it.
No, I guess that's a quite a useful thought, right? And see, we also see that happening, right? So people are always after releasing things faster, but never commit to improving things, right? Just want. That's what I say, right? People talk about AI, but the reality of AI and all, they don't, they lack the uh, depth of it, right? So yeah, you're quite right there. So I have a few questions before we end this podcast,
Yeah.
Ethan, right? So, uh, so as a testing professional or aspiring tester, right? What different things I should be learning now to stay relevant in the AI driven region?
Yeah. Okay. I will start with probably not necessarily start. It doesn't have to be in this order. I'm just going to give you some suggestions. One of them would be probably to learn a programming language. So most AIs I'm aware of are predominantly Python based. Python isn't a reasonably easy language to learn, so I would advocate that. I'm not saying you have to become a Python expert and you can write code in your sleep, but at least have an appreciation of the language and the pros and pitfalls of that language, because a lot of AIs are built upon it. That would be point one. Start to be able to understand the hype versus the reality of AI and look for quality information that's out there, training material, articles, academic studies on how AI works and its pitfalls and what its downsides. Don't necessarily get sucked into the hype, but maintain your impartiality and your criticality in your assessment of that. So upskill generally on AI, books, articles, YouTube videos, etc. would be another thing. Never lose the skill of being a critical thinker. So don't outsource your thinking. Don't let AI do the thinking for you. Let AI supplement your thinking. Let AI accelerate your thinking. That would be another thing I would certainly advocate for people to do. And probably the last and easiest one, just start using it, right? It's a bit like going to the gym. Like, well, I need the perfect program for the gym and the perfect diet, and I need to go at this time in the morning, get these shoes and this t-shirt and this water bottle with this supplement in it. Or you just start going to the gym. An AI then thing, right? Which model do I use? How do I use it? What should I use it for?
Yeah.
Just, just start, and that will happen over time. You
Yeah.
don't put these human generated barriers in between you learning something. Get hands on, start using it. See how good it is at making test cases. See how good it is doing root cause analysis. See how good it is at reviewing some requirements, right? See the kind of errors that you're seeing it. Learn off other people that are doing that thing as well. A lot of peer-to-peer learning is hugely important as well. Get into a community of people would be like one more thing I would add. So, in the UK, there's the Ministry of Testing, which I would recommend if you're a UK-based resource. The UK testing board that I support, they have their own communities. So does the ISQI. There's plenty of Indian-based equivalent communities. Get into those communities and learn off your peers as well. Is hugely important. Listen to podcasts and webinars, right? Well, that community aspect's been done largely remotely now, which was always a barrier in the past.
Yeah. Those aspiring QAs and QAs, right? You got now the list of action items that you should be doing, you should be following, right? So thanks so much, Stephen, for your time today. So before, if you have to learn more on Stephen, right? So there's a LinkedIn URL, and you can simply search, as I said in the outset of the podcast, Stoic Tester. You'll find everything about him, right? The researches he's doing, the boards he's contributing, and all the work, you'll still find it, right? And to know more about our Assure, you can head out to Evo community, right? You can join our WhatsApp community channel. You can browse courses on Evo Academy to get more insights into what we are actually working on, how we are actually introducing features that make sense in the AI testing world. So with this, I would like to conclude the podcast today. And thanks again, Stephen, for your time. It was truly exciting. And I am sure that people will find a lot of relevant insight from after watching this.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's been a great time. I'll love to be back. Thanks.